Science. 4.1 Math and Philosophy. Mathematics plays a dual role in philosophy. It is both a subject of study and a powerful tool that philosophers use in their work. Logic, which is often considered a branch of mathematics, particularly in the study of discrete structures, is a prime example of how math serves as a tool in the philosopher's toolkit. Through logic, philosophers apply mathematical principles to analyze arguments, assess validity, and explore the structure of reasoning. The rigorous, formal nature of logic provides a clear and precise way to evaluate philosophical claims, making it an essential part of philosophical methodology. But the use of mathematics in philosophy extends beyond logic. Here are a few other ways in which math functions as a tool rather than just a subject. Set theory. Set theory, a fundamental branch of mathematics, is often used in philosophical discussions about the nature of infinity, identity, and the foundations of mathematics itself. Philosophers use set theory to explore and clarify concepts related to collections, membership, and the structure of mathematical and non-mathematical objects. A notable example of this is the discussion surrounding the paradoxes of set theory, such as Russell's paradox, which questions whether the set of all sets that do not contain themselves as a member can exist without leading to a contradiction. This paradox challenges our understanding of sets and has led to significant developments in logic and the philosophy of mathematics. Philosophers have used set theory to explore these foundational issues, leading to the creation of more refined systems, such as Zermelo-Fraenkel set theory, which attempts to avoid such paradoxes through axioms that more carefully define what constitutes a set. Probability and decision theory. Probability theory and decision theory, both rooted in mathematics, are employed by philosophers to analyze rational choice, risk, and uncertainty. These tools are crucial in areas such as ethics, epistemology, and philosophy of science, where they help philosophers assess the likelihood of events, the rationality of decisions, and the justification of beliefs. A more impactful example of the use of probability theory in philosophy is the analysis of decision-making under uncertainty in the context of medical ethics. Consider the dilemma of whether to implement a new, untested treatment for a life-threatening disease. Philosophers use probability theory to weigh the potential outcomes, the likelihood of the treatment being effective versus the risks of side effects or failure. This approach helps in making rational decisions about whether the potential benefits justify the risks, especially when data is limited and decisions must be made quickly. Such analyses are crucial in real-life scenarios, where the stakes involve human lives and ethical considerations must be balanced with empirical evidence. Formal semantics. In the philosophy of language, formal semantics often draws on mathematical logic and set theory to model the meanings of sentences and the relationships between them. This mathematical approach allows philosophers to explore questions about meaning, reference, and truth in a structured and rigorous way. An example of formal semantics in philosophy is the analysis of the meaning of if-then statements, conditionals, in natural language. Philosophers use formal semantics to clarify the difference between material implication in logic and the more nuanced way we use conditionals in everyday language. For instance, the formal semantic approach can explain why if it rains, the ground will be wet is intuitively understood as true even if it doesn't rain, provided that if it did rain, the ground would indeed be wet. This analysis helps distinguish between the strict logical interpretation and the everyday use of conditionals, shedding light on how meaning operates in language and improving our understanding of logical statements in both philosophical and practical contexts. Game theory. Game theory, another mathematical tool, is used in philosophy to study strategic interactions among rational agents. It has applications in ethics, political philosophy, and social philosophy, where it helps to analyze and predict the behavior of individuals and groups in competitive and cooperative contexts. An example of game theory in philosophy is the analysis of the tragedy of the commons, a scenario where individuals acting in their own self-interest can lead to the depletion of a shared resource, harming the group as a whole. Philosophers use game theory to model this situation, showing how rational individuals, each seeking to maximize their own benefit, such as overfishing in a shared lake, can collectively bring about a negative outcome. This analysis helps in understanding the dynamics of collective action problems and in exploring solutions, such as establishing cooperative agreements or regulations to preserve the common resource, which is highly relevant to issues like environmental ethics and public policy. Geometry and topology. In metaphysics and philosophy of space and time, concepts from geometry and topology are used to explore the nature of physical space, continuity, and the structure of the universe. These mathematical disciplines provide the language and tools needed to discuss the properties and relationships of space and time in a precise manner. An example of the application of geometry and topology in philosophy is the analysis of the nature of space and time in the context of Einstein's theory of relativity. Philosophers use the concept of a manifold from topology to understand the structure of space-time, which is not simply a flat, three-dimensional space but a curved, four-dimensional continuum. This topological approach allows philosophers to explore questions about the nature of the universe, such as whether space and time are continuous or discrete, and how objects move and interact within this curved space-time. Such analysis is crucial for debates in the philosophy of physics, particularly in understanding the implications of modern physics for our conception of reality. In all these cases, mathematics is not merely a topic of philosophical inquiry but a vital tool that philosophers use to clarify concepts, formulate arguments, and explore the structure of reality. By incorporating mathematical methods into their work, philosophers can achieve a higher degree of precision and rigor, allowing them to tackle complex problems in a more systematic and effective way. 4.2 Natural Science. Natural science plays a dual role in philosophy, serving both as a subject of study and as a powerful tool that guides philosophical inquiry. For example, physics is not only a topic that philosophers explore, considering questions like what is a law of nature, but it also serves as a constraint on philosophical theorizing. Since physics is our most reliable means of discovering what exists in the world, it provides critical input that philosophers must take into account when developing theories about the nature of reality. Philosophical discussions about metaphysics, causality, and the nature of space and time are all informed and shaped by the findings of physical science. Beyond physics, natural sciences like biology and neuroscience also function as tools for philosophy. In ethics, for instance, philosophers might use findings from evolutionary biology to explore the origins of moral behavior and whether moral values can be said to have a biological basis. Similarly, neuroscience informs discussions in the philosophy of mind, where empirical studies about brain functions can provide insights into the nature of consciousness, free will, and personal identity. Philosophers like Peter Singer and biologists like E.O. Wilson have used findings from evolutionary biology to explore the biological basis of ethics, particularly focusing on the origins of empathy and altruism. Their work suggests that moral behaviors, such as empathy and altruism, may have evolved because they provided survival and reproductive advantages to our ancestors. E.O. Wilson, a pioneer in sociobiology, argued that traits like altruism can be understood through the lens of natural selection. He proposed that behaviors promoting the survival of close relatives, who share a significant portion of one's genes, could be favored by evolution, a concept known as kin selection. Altruistic behaviors that benefit kin, even at a cost to oneself, can enhance the survival of shared genetic material, thereby increasing the likelihood of those genes being passed on to future generations. Peter Singer, drawing on these ideas, has argued that our capacity for empathy, a key component of altruism, might have evolved as part of our social nature. Human beings, as social animals, depend on cooperation and mutual support for survival. Empathy allows us to understand and share the feelings of others, fostering cooperation and social bonding, which in turn contribute to the well-being and survival of the group. Singer extends this biological understanding of empathy to advocate for a more expansive ethical view, where our moral concern should extend beyond our immediate kin and community to all sentient beings, based on the same capacity for empathy that evolved in our ancestors. These evolutionary accounts of empathy and altruism suggest that ethics may have a biological foundation, rooted in the survival benefits these traits provided in our evolutionary past. By understanding the origins of these behaviors, philosophers can better address questions about the nature of morality and the reasons behind our ethical intuitions and behaviors. This intersection of biology and philosophy illustrates how natural science serves as a tool for philosophical inquiry, grounding ethical theories in our understanding of human nature and evolution. These examples illustrate that while natural science is a subject of philosophical inquiry, it also provides essential tools and constraints that shape philosophical theories, ensuring they remain grounded in our best empirical understanding of the world. Neuroscience has had a profound impact on the philosophy of mind, particularly in discussions about the nature of consciousness and the question of free will. Proponents of neurophilosophy, such as Patricia Chutchland, argue that neuroscientific findings challenge traditional views of the mind, suggesting that what we call the mind is, in fact, nothing more or less than the brain. Chutchland and others point to studies of split brain patients, where the corpus callosum, the structure connecting the two hemispheres of the brain, is severed. These patients often exhibit two separate streams of consciousness, effectively functioning as two independent minds within the same body. This phenomenon provides compelling evidence that consciousness is closely tied to brain function, supporting the view that mental processes are entirely physical. Furthermore, neuroscience has contributed to the debate over free will, particularly through experiments that suggest that our conscious decisions might be preceded by unconscious neural processes. Some studies, such as those conducted by Benjamin Libet, have shown that the brain initiates actions milliseconds before the individual becomes consciously aware of the decision to act. This has led some philosophers and scientists to argue that free will is an illusion. If our actions are determined by neural processes that occur before we are aware of them, then our sense of making free, conscious choices might be mistaken. These neuroscientific findings challenge traditional metaphysical views that see the mind as distinct from the body or that uphold a strong notion of free will. Instead, they suggest that our thoughts, decisions, and sense of self are deeply rooted in the physical workings of the brain. By providing empirical evidence about how the brain functions, neuroscience has become an essential tool in philosophical discussions about the nature of consciousness and the reality of free will, pushing philosophers to reconsider long-held assumptions and to integrate scientific findings into their theories. Limitations of natural science and the invitation to metaphysical reasoning. While natural science provides invaluable insights into the workings of the physical world, it also has its limitations, particularly when it comes to answering deeper metaphysical questions about the nature of consciousness, identity, and the essence of human beings. As we have seen in the discussion about neuroscience, the findings of natural science often lead to further philosophical reflection rather than providing definitive answers to these profound questions. For instance, neuroscience can explain the brain's role in generating conscious experience, but it invites further inquiry into what constitutes consciousness itself. Are human beings purely physical entities, composed only of matter, or is there something more to our existence? Do we possess a soul, and if so, what is the relationship between our consciousness and this soul? These questions move beyond the realm of empirical science and into the domain of metaphysics, where philosophers explore the fundamental nature of reality. One influential metaphysical perspective that addresses these questions is Aristotle's theory of hylomorphism, which posits that everything in the natural world is a composite of matter and form. According to Aristotle, matter provides the potential for a thing to exist, while form gives it its actual structure and purpose. In the case of living beings, including humans, the soul is understood as the form of the body, the principle that organizes and animates matter into a living, functioning organism. For Aristotle, the soul is not a separate, immaterial substance as later thinkers like Descartes would argue, but rather an integral aspect of the human being as a unified whole. The soul is what makes a human body a living, thinking person, giving it life, identity, and purpose. This hylomorphic view suggests that human beings are not merely physical matter, nor are they purely spiritual entities. Instead, They are a union of both matter and soul, where the soul is the form that actualizes the potential of the body. Aristotle's hylomorphism invites a nuanced understanding of human nature that goes beyond the reductionist view often implied by a purely scientific approach. It raises questions about the essence of consciousness, the nature of identity, and the existence of a soul, questions that cannot be fully addressed by natural science alone. Instead, these inquiries require metaphysical reasoning, where philosophers grapple with concepts that transcend empirical observation and delve into the foundational aspects of existence. In this way, the limitations of natural science invite us to engage in metaphysical reflection, exploring the deeper questions that science itself raises but cannot entirely answer. Through such reflection, we can seek a more comprehensive understanding of what it means to be human, considering both the physical and metaphysical dimensions of our existence.